Today we will continue listening to God's story. We are reading the book of Joshua, and it is sermon number 69 in the series titled God's Story. And it's the sixth one dedicated to the book of Joshua. Today the chapters are 16, 17, and 18. And the topic is God's story, dividing the land. Dividing the land. When Israelites came to the land of Canaan, they divided it amongst themselves. So this is what we will be talking about, because these three chapters, they exclusively deal with this issue. So, first question is this: who has the right? Who has a moral authority to be engaged in dividing the land? Say there is a nation that's smart, adventurous, scientifically agile, and therefore they have weaponry that is superior to their neighbors. Is it enough of a justification to conquer and to enlarge their territory? Who has the right to deal with the land? That's the first question. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verses 7 through 9. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you, your elders, and they will tell you. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob, his allotted heritage. So we have the answer. Who has the right? First of all, we find out that God deals in land distribution. God engaged in distributing land to nations and establishing their borders. This is something that God does according to this passage. Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verse 23 says, "The land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine. For you are strangers and sojourners with me." You know, these two terms, strangers and sojourners, is often used in the Bible to describe people of other nations coming to dwell among Israelites. So the terms in the original are ger, this is a stranger who resettled and now lives among the people for a brief time. And then there is toshav in the original, in Hebrew, which describes a person who has been here for quite a while. But ethnically, in terms of origin, these are non-Israelites who decided to resettle and dwell among God's people. But in this case, who is God talking about? When he says, "You are strangers and sojourners with me." Leviticus chapter 25 is about the land of Israel. It's about the Sabbath year, it's about the Jubilee year, it's about property, it's about real estate of the promised land. So when God says, "You are strangers and sojourners with me," in the original, Garim ve Toshavim, he is addressing Israelites. You are temporarily dwellers on my land, he says. Right? And the reason that he calls them that, because the land belongs to God. The land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine. This is God speaking. So there is this well-known term in English, a landlord, right? God is the landlord. The land is mine. I'm the Lord. I'm the landlord. And therefore, anyone who dwells here, it is up to me. If you are a landlord, you can choose. You could set criteria, what's allowed, what's not allowed, right? For example, smoking inside is not allowed. Pets are okay, under 20 pounds, and you name it. So these are the criteria, and then people choose. If they agree, welcome, sign the contract. If not, maybe someone else would have you, right? But you are the landlord. God says, the land is mine. Therefore, I have the right to settle there people according to my desire. Another passage, the book of Amos, chapter 9, verse 7. Are you not like the Cushites to me, O people of Israel, declares the Lord? Did I not bring up Israel from the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Kaftor, and the Syrians from Kir? Very fascinating statement. First of all, who are the Cushites? If you go to other versions, you will have the term Ethiopian there. But this is a loose translation, because Cush means black in the original, in the language of the Bible. So God says, whether a black person or a Jewish person, you are what? You are the same to me. Again, are you not like the blacks to me, O people of Israel? Declares the Lord. That's the first important statement. Another one says this: did I not bring up Israel from the land of Egypt? This is very well documented in the Bible, right? God bringing his people out of the land of bondage, slavery, and so forth. But in the same breath, the Bible says that God also did what? He brought up Philistines from Kaftor and the Syrians from Kir. God was acting in resettling people, in resettling nations of the course of human history. We know about Israel because it is described in details. This is just mentioned, but it is enough for us to see that God says in the Bible, he was in the business of resettling people, of moving nations around. And the fourth statement on the subject is found in apostolic writings in the book of Acts, Acts of Apostles, chapter 17, verses 24 through 26. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth. And now pay attention. Having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place. Another very important statement on our topic. What has God been doing in history of humankind? What do you see? He was determining time and boundaries for all nations. These are your borders, internationally recognized borders. This is the time where you live here. God was determining that. And the next question is, what is the reason? In virtue of what did God do this? Verse 24, the God who made the world and everything in it, being the Lord, the landlord, and the heaven Lord, the Lord of heaven and earth, he made the decision. So the reason is simple. God created the universe. God created our planet. It is his land. Therefore, he has the right to decide. No human has the right. So when there is aggression of one nation against another nation, when there is military expansion, when human rights are being violated, when there is no God's will for the resettlement or expansion or changing the borders, this is called sin, because it goes against God's will. So the first thing that we're trying to establish today, studying the topic dividing the land, is it's a broad question of whose authority, whose moral right is this? God is the creator, he is the land lord, and therefore he has the right to determine who lives where and for how long. That's what we discover in these passages. Now we can take a closer look at the promised land, at the Holy Land, at the so-called the land of Canaan. Because this is the story, this is the phase that we are studying of Israelites dividing the land promised to Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, and Jacob. So, when talking about this, the first question again is about the moral reason for that. So the question is this: why there was an expulsion of the nations that already resided there? You already know the answer. Because a couple of months back, there was a sermon titled God's Story, colon, The Wars of the Law of the Lord. The Wars of the Lord. And we specifically studied the land of Canaan. And if you missed it or you want to refresh the knowledge, you could find this on our YouTube channel. It's a very important sermon in terms of laying the groundwork for understanding the reason of what some are calling genocide, ethnic cleansing, and you name it. In reality, nothing of that sort took place. But today, we're moving beyond that. And we're asking the question about the division of the land. How was it done? On what grounds? In what way? Who did it? And so forth. So dividing the promised land now specifically. It all starts with God's revelation to Moses. The book of Numbers, chapter 26, verses 51 through 56. This was the list of the people of Israel, 601,730. Let's pause there. So, what should be added to this number? Males of military age. So, 20 through 60. Over 600,000 of people who were capable of fighting. So you add their spouses and kids and so forth. So we have a couple of million of people, right? But we have census. Everyone was counted. Now let's continue reading verse 52. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, among these, so these over 600,000 people, among these the land shall be divided for inheritance according to the names, to the number of names, meaning individuals. To a larger tribe you shall give a larger inheritance, and to a smaller tribe you shall give a smaller inheritance. Every tribe shall be given its inheritance in proportion to its list, but the land shall be divided by a lot. According to the names of the tribes of their fathers they shall inherit. Their inheritance shall be divided according to the lot between the larger and the smaller. So this is the first passage that sets up a program of dividing the land, and parameters, basic parameters are given. So what are they? First, there is clarity about who gets the land. Everyone was counted. So all households, all families were counted. Not as was during the Wild West land grab. Who is faster, who has more guns, and so forth. I mean, he takes whatever he wants, right? Regardless who lives here now, who are natives, what their plans for the land are, and you name it. Everything in this story was prepared in advance. There was complete, full picture of who is entering. There was a full account. There were documents. Census was taken. That's number one. Number two, verse 54 says, to a larger tribe you shall give a large inheritance, and to a small tribe you shall give a small inheritance. This is also very revolutionary, because typically, here's what happens. Who gets the most? The rich ones. Those who have the money or able to buy more guns and so forth. So the land is typically grabbed by those in authority. Here in the Bible, it's tied to what? To the size of your family. How many mouths do you need to feed, right? That's very important. So there was proportionality of the size of each land lot to the number of people in each tribe. Equality. Whether you are poor or middle class or upper middle class or you name it, it doesn't matter. You get the equal portion. Further, there is still a question. Even if you divide the whole square acreage among the people, the number of people, the land is different in quality. Is there a stream? Is there a well? Is it, a hillside or fertile land? What is it? And who gets to decide who gets what, right? There is a lot of potential for quarrels and squabbling and you name it, right? So the third very important aspect of this proposed plan is this. How did they decide? Verses 55 and 56. The land shall be divided by lot. What does it mean? Lot casting. Lottery is a good example. If you go to Another verse that describes this, it's in the book of Numbers, chapter 33, verse 54. You shall inherit the land by lot, according to your clans. To a larger tribe you shall give a large inheritance, and to a small tribe you shall give a small inheritance. Wherever the lot falls for anyone, that shall be his. So lots were cast, which means it's random. There is no one to blame because no one makes a decision where exactly to settle. So the lots were distributed by casting lots, if you know what I'm saying. So this is the blueprint. This is the general plan. Now let's move further and add something else to the picture. The book of Numbers, chapter 34, verses 16 through 18. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, These are the names of the men who shall divide the land to you for inheritance. Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun. You shall take one chief from every tribe to divide the land for inheritance. And then the list of names is given. So the next question is, who will be in charge? Whenever there is a question of getting something, especially the real estate, this could be a very charged question, right? So God is the one who says, these are the names of the people, so these are the people that I want to divide the land, to oversee the process. Who is named first? Eleazar the priest. So the spiritual authority is number one. Then Joshua, who is he? Like he's an equivalent to a president. He's a political figure, right? He's the chief ruler, supreme ruler of the land. And then princes from each tribe are representatives of each tribe. So speaking in terms of this country, it's both federal level and the state level as well. You see? Wisdom in the approach. And this is how it was executed. The book of Joshua, chapter 14, verse 1. These are the inheritances that the people of Israel received in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the fathers' houses of the tribes of the people of Israel gave them to inherit. So those people that were told to do this by God through Moses, Moses died, the people crossed over Jordan, and now they are in the business of doing this. It is still the same blueprint. It is still the same plan. This is how it was divided. Another passage, the book of Joshua, chapter 18, verses 4 through 10. Let's read a little more about how it was done. Joshua says, provide 3 men from each tribe, and I will send them out that they may set out and go up and down the land. They shall write a description of it with a view to their inheritances, and then come to me. They shall divide it into 7 portions. Why 7? Judah shall continue in his territory on the south. It already had its land. And the house of Joseph shall continue in their territory on the north. And you shall describe the land in 7 divisions and bring the description here to me. And I will cast lots for you here before the Lord our God. The Levites have no portion among you, for the priesthood of the Lord is their heritage. and Gad and Reuben and half the tribe of Manasseh have received the inheritance beyond the Jordan eastward, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. So the men rose and went, and Joshua charged those who went to write the description of the land, saying, "Go up and down in the land and write a description and return to me, and I will cast lots for you here before the Lord in Shiloh." So the men went and passed up and down in the land and wrote in a book a description of it by towns in 7 divisions. Then they came to Joshua to camp at Shiloh, and Joshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before the Lord. And then Joshua appointed the land to the people of Israel, to each his portion. Again, there is a number of very important elements not to miss to understand how it was done. First, preparation. Today we would use satellite images, or if not accessible, some drone footage, or in the worst case scenario, send people with picture makers apparatuses and get the map and provide the map. But there it was only description. So they had to go everywhere and write down in a book a description of each land. So a map needed to be prepared. Then description of borders. And they brought everything to the leader. Now, point number 2. Who was engaged? Who prepared the lots? The Bible says, verse 4, provide 3 men from each tribe. So there were princes of each tribe that, together with Eleazar and Joshua, were leading in the process. But then each tribe had 3 people representing it who joined this expedition. Who determined who would go? Who gets to choose who are the 3? What do you see here? The tribes did it. Voting. Who do you trust? Who do you trust to represent us in this very important land dividing expedition? So people were involved. It's called a representative form of governance. And they went out and they described everything and divided the portions. The involvement of recipients in determining of the parcels. Let me illustrate this. There is a story about one old person who was getting his will ready, getting ready to pass on, and he had 2 sons, and he had a lot of land. And as I mentioned before, not all square footage of land is created equal. So the question was, how will they decide how to divide the land? He was a very wise man, and trying to exclude any dissent, any arguments, quarrel, and sour relationships between his sons, he said the following: "Let one of you divide the land into 2 plots, and the other will have the right to choose one of them. Let me repeat it. One will divide the land, and the second will choose any parcel he wants. What do you think happened? The one who was dividing, he made sure that the division was fair, because he knew that his brother would immediately pick the better lot if the division was not fair, right? So this is what was happening here, because guess what? The people engaged in the mapping expedition, they did not know which lot they will get. Why? Because it was determined by casting lots. So they had to do the most thorough job that they possibly could, the most fair divisions, and they brought the results, and then there was the act of casting lots. And when the Bible describes that, it says the following. It's the same passage, chapter 18, the book of Joshua, verse 6 says, Joshua says, "And I will cast lots for you here before the Lord our God." The lots were cast before the Lord. What does it mean? Verse 8, "And I will cast lots for you here before the Lord in Shiloh." Verse 10, "And Joshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before the Lord." What does it mean? Before the Lord, and what's the significance of this place? Thank you. Verse 1 says, Joshua 18:1, "Then the whole congregation of the people of Israel assembled at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there." What's the tent of meeting? The sanctuary. Sanctuary is where God visibly demonstrates his presence by the glory between two cherubs above the Ark of the Covenant, right? So it was done in the sanctuary, meaning in the courtyard of the sanctuary. So it was a spiritual act, and God was invoked to be the deciding one who gets what. In the Bible, we find the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 33, Proverbs 16:33, that says, "The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord." That's what people of God believed. They prayed and they cast lots, and it was God's way to show his will. So it was God who determined where the people would reside. So this was the process. And in the end, I would like you to try to get a feel of how it looked in reality on the receiving end. How was it for the people who were receiving their lots as a result of casting lots? The book of Joshua, chapter 17, verses 1 through 6. "Then allotment was made to the people of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph. To Mahir, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, were allotted Gilead and Bashan, because he was a man of war." How did he get to have Gilead and Bashan? It was allotted, meaning a lot was cast, and this is what fell for him. Now, and allotments were made to the rest of the people of Manasseh by their clans: Abiezer, Helek, Asriel, Shechem, Hefer, and Shemidah. These are the male descendants of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, by their clans. Now, Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, son of Gilead, son of Mahir, son of Manasseh, had no sons, but only daughters. And these are the names of the daughters: Mahla, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirza. Let us pause. What would girls usually get? Yes, nothing. I mean, in other nations, historically, property was always a right of a male. Even in this country and other developed and progressive countries, so the right of real estate ownership for female is a pretty new development. So when I read this story, I'm curious. What will happen here? What do you think? What will these girls get? Because God is the one who is distributing. Remember? Let's continue reading. They approached Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the leaders and said, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance along with our brothers. So according to the mouth of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance among the brothers of their father. Thus there fell to Manasseh 10 portions, besides the land of Gilead and Bashan, which is on the other side of the Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh received an inheritance along with his sons. The land of Gilead was allotted to the rest of the people of Manasseh." So this is one example of how the lots were received. And we discover that the girls received land also. Now, what happens if this girl, a landowner, marries someone? He also has a piece of land, right? He's a male. I mean, naturally, he has a portion of his father's land. What would happen? They cannot live on both parcels at the same time. They need to choose. This is what happens. Let me give you one example. The book of Nehemiah, chapter 7, verse 63. Also of the priests, the sons of Habiah, the sons of Hakots, the sons of Barzillai, who had taken a wife of the daughters of Barzillai the Gileadite, the one that we just read about. And he was called by their name. So today we would say what? He took his wife's last name. Can you imagine that? 15th century BC. You know, I know people who even today think that it's a blasphemy for a boy to have his wife's last name. I mean, what kind of a male is he, right? I mean, there are so many prejudices still in existence today, whereas so many hundreds of and thousands of years ago, the Bible had it clear at the beginning. He chose her last name, and it was not something to be ashamed of. Why? Why? So, Joshua 19, verse 51, these are the inheritances that Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the fathers' houses of the tribes of the people of Israel distributed by lot in Shiloh before the Lord at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So they finished dividing the land. That's God's story for today. That's how it happened. And it reveals a lot about God, His values, His attitude toward people. There are many principles that are still applicable today. Amen.